everyone. The subject of this came up when I was on the phone with a potential client, and we were talking about digital accessibility, and the person on the other end of the line was always, was contemplative in the sense that they just built a new site and thought, well, how bad could our accessibility be, right? We just built a new site, it looks beautiful, it operates far better than the other site, but so inherently it has to be accessible, or at least, have some form of good accessibility. And so on the phone, I asked them if they've ever listened to their website. And that was it struck me when I talked about it, because I thought, while everybody, even if you're, very focused on accessibility, a lot of times, even when we're focused and centered on it, we're not necessarily, testing as a user would test, or bringing in users who use real assistive technology to really focus and run it through its paces. So, additionally, when I tend to talk to people about screen readers and kind of the audio version of the web, people think about it as a very small use case. We do a lot of work in the private sector, and I've even had some people on the phone say, well, we sell XYZ product. I don't think we have a lot of blind customers. And I go, you'd be very, very shocked about how many people could benefit from that. And so, as part of today, what we were hoping to do is really, one, kind of help show our perspective on kind of the business case and the use case around audio as a content medium, the amount of people that are using audio on the web on a daily basis, kind of the diverse use cases beyond just kind of generalized screen readers like NVDA and some of those other ones that we're talking about. We'd like to give you kind of a live demo of a few things. We're not using any government websites, we're using stuff from the public sector, but we'll show you exactly how one navigates through it. And then we'll also kind of highlight some other elements and some future things that we think are going on. And then obviously at the end we have time for Q&A, but as we're going through any of the points or even the demo, please stop and ask questions. This is, meant to be participatory on both sides. Sound good?
Yep.
Awesome. All right. So just by way of introduction, my name is Matthew Elefant. I'm the managing director of a company called Inclusive Web that's based in New York, and we're solely focused on accessibility. And with me is...
Hi everyone, my name is Anthony Capone. I'm the accounts manager at Inclusive Web, and I also happen to be legally blind, so I'm going to be the one giving the screen reader demo later on.
Yes. So this is just, if you're interested about us, feel free to go and take a look at it, down the road. So in terms of kind of making the business case for screen readers and for audio as a content medium, I kind of like to bring up this slide. So I think the first statistic I think a lot of people are very aware of. So roughly about 7.6 million people in the US use screen readers on a daily basis. The other part of the topic is this concept around voice and just the overall use cases of voice. So voice searches, 50% on a monthly basis, people are using their assistants or just invoking search as an element, and roughly about 27% on a daily basis. Audio articles, or just audio as a content, is growing in terms of overall use cases and overall use. And then in terms of globally, the amount of people that are identified as blind or have vision problems is roughly about 2.2 billion. And again, a lot of times, these are not necessarily statistics that people are capturing and studying directly. So we think that there's actually a lot more behind this. So as I said before, There's roughly about 7.6 million people around the US who identify as blind. Another big use case that people don't often think about, people with dyslexia are very common to use audio. In fact, I was contacted by a woman who's doing her graduate study in NYU, who's literally building a screen reader for people with dyslexia. A lot of times, how she kind of got through her PhD studies was literally copying and pasting PDFs and pasting them into Speechify, and then having to listen and digest the content that way. Concepts of low literacy, so roughly about 21% of US readers read below a 5th grade reading level. Older Americans, so I always talk about my mother. My mother's in her late 70s, doesn't identify as disabled, but uses a lot of assistive technologies in terms of enlarged fonts and things along those lines. And then when we combine kind of all of these statistics, it's roughly about 100 million Americans. So literally 1 in 3 people start to use voice or some elements around voice as an assistive technology. So it's much larger than most people think about. When we think about the use cases, again, obviously we're talking about screen readers. So if people are not familiar with screen readers are predominantly used by people who are blind and have low vision. There are 3 main ones in the marketplace today. JAWS, which is a licensed version, NVDA, which is an open source screen reader, and then VoiceOver, which is just found on the Macs. Again, audio articles are just generalized audio plugins, so think Speechify and other elements like that are using speech overlays to read the text on the screen, and then your common kind of voice searches. I think obviously more and more with AI, a lot of people are using AI through voice, and those statistics are coming shortly. Kind of the overlap of those two things converge when we start talking about within the web. So how are you properly formatting things? So giving real real proper structure to your pages becomes very important as voice becomes a predominant topic. So making sure your H1s are properly structured, using things like ARIA, making sure buttons have common language types between one another. So making sure kind of like the underlining code matches the visual text that's there as well. Does that make sense? Obviously some of the missed opportunities that we see, so people that still persistently use PDFs, lots of content is stuck and hidden within PDFs. Forms is another really big one. I think forms without labels and are really become public blockers. I do see there's going to be a time where people are going to rely on their LLMs, like, hey, go sign me up for this or fill out a form, and they're going to ask their digital assistants for that. And clearly having forms with proper labels is going to be a key component of all of that. And then just all of those things, when those queries fail, obviously becomes a loss of the public trust and really becomes an overall fail. So to kind of put this synthesized together, I'm going to bring up Anthony, who's going to give us a demo of kind of how this all results in actually using the web. So let's give it up for Anthony.
Hi everyone. Yeah, so as Matt said, I'm going to give a little bit of a demo here, so we're going to go sort of a little off course with the PowerPoint slides here. But so basically, what I want to show off is how someone who's blind like myself, what does that actually look like, right? If I was to go on a website, like I'm going to show you a website called Wolf and Badger, right? If I was handed that website, I mean that's probably good branding, but like I don't know what that is. Maybe you don't know what that is, but if you clicked on the website, you could look at it and you could see, okay, what are they selling? What are they offering? What are they doing? What's the purpose of it? Well, how would someone who's blind do that? So let's get into it. So first of all, I mean, obviously visually you can see here that it's obviously a clothing company. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on my screen reader really quick, and I'll show you how basically what a screen reader, if you've never seen a screen reader or heard of a screen reader, basically what it is you use keyboard controls only, no mouse, to navigate element by element on the website, and it announces what's going on. So it announces like any element you can think of, like a button, a link, a list, anything. So that's how someone who's blind would go through and navigate this. So it's very imperative that your headings are labeled properly, as Matt was saying earlier, and buttons are labeled properly with what their actual function is, so that someone's not going onto a button and then their screen reader announces it as button, and then I'm like, okay, well, what does that do? So let's turn on the screen reader really quick, and hopefully the sound is good. We'll see how that goes.
Ping.
Okay.
Start toggle button not pressed.
Okay. So we can hear the screen reader, and
Search task code show hit desktop.
Oh, okay.
Start toggle
I don't
button
care
not-
about any of this.
With summer head shop independent ethical and unique designers wolf.
a little louder. Okay.
Not a problem. All right.
Shop independent ethical
Why
and
is it not
unique
announcing
designers.
my? Can you
Is that a
hear?
good volume for everyone?
Okay, good. All right.
So,
Discover the jewelry shop link.
Okay. So first of all, I heard discover the jewelry shop link, so now that gives me a little hint of what it is right off the bat. But I can just I'm just going to use the tab key really quick and just tab through some of the elements, and you'll notice.
Enter navigation landmark home link current page. Click to view our accessibility statement link.
Okay.
Sale link.
Okay, so here sale link.
Women link. Men visited link. Jewelry link. Home link.
Okay, so I hear men, women, jewelry, things like that. So I'm guessing they're selling some sort of accessories.
Gifts link. Discover visited link.
Okay, so then I hear there's a discover link. Let me click on that with enter.
Navigate to discover.
Okay, so now I'm on the discover page. So now you'll notice as well that visually on the top there's a box around whatever I was tabbed onto. That's called a visual indicator. That's also helpful for people like me who have some usable vision that can kind of see where the indicator is, or there's people who don't use a screen reader who just are keyboard users for some other reason. Maybe they have some type of paralysis or hand tremors and they can't use a mouse. So there's plenty of users who, for any number of reasons, would just use the keyboard controls. Who that helps as well, and that's important to keep in mind for later on in the demo. So, all right, so now what I'm going to do is a screen reader allows you also to navigate by things like headings. So I can click the H key right now,
Main landmark discover heading level 1.
and it announces discover heading level 1. So now that I know that the heading level 1 is discover, and you can visually see that that's what the heading level 1 is. So now we're going to move into the H2s, and we're going to listen for what sort of things we're discovering.
Summer dresses heading level 2 link. Weddings heading level 2 link. Discover heading level 2. Women's wear heading level 2 link. Men's wear heading level 2 visited.
Okay, so now I can get an idea of, okay, they're selling dresses, they have wedding gear, they have men's gear, so it's sort of a high-end clothing store, jewelry, stuff like that. So that's basically what I wanted to show off, like basically how would someone who's blind grab the concept of what's going on, and I can obviously enter into any of these elements and search for whatever I wanted if there's a search field. But what I want to do now is I want to sort of shift gears. And I want to move to a different website, which is not very accessible. And I want to show you what it's like to try and access something that it literally just can't be accessed. So we're going to move on to hold on. So if I go...
Submenu 103.
Okay. So we're going to move into, not to call out Days In, but the Days In website. Just something I found. Could be anyone's website. Like, not to specifically call them out, but...
Days in by window graphic visited link.
Okay. So now the first thing you're going to notice on this website is, unlike the previous one, there is no visual indicator. So you're going to be blind just like me, not knowing where we are on the page. So we're gonna have fun together. So if I hit tab,
Account submenu 2 of 3. Book submenu 3 of 3.
okay, you heard account submenu and book submenu. Now I know because I've been here before that's on the top right of the screen. So that's where we are, and I'm going to hit tab one more time, and visually you can see that there are fields to put in, your date of when you want to stay and things like that. But if I hit tab here,
Find a hotel complimentary landmark clickable end of summer sale members save 10 to 20% book now.
okay, so we can see that it's jumped past that entire window, and now we're down here. So how am I supposed to access that thing that's there? I don't even know that that's there. So that's just something that's completely inaccessible. That's something that how would someone know that that's there? How would they interact with it? Well, now, assuming I could get into that, let's see because this is another thing on websites that tends to be very inaccessible, or things like calendars, because they're usually like tables and you can navigate through them. But I want to sort of show off what an inaccessible calendar looks like, and then quickly I'm going to shift over to end the demo with what an accessible calendar is going to look like. So let's look at this one. I'm going to have to click on it, so give me a second.
WindhamHotels.com/days in. Search landmark clickable navigation landmark clickable enter destination edit required enter destination clickable check in.
So now we're in the calendar, and I want to try and get it to read some stuff out, but sometimes it's finicky because, like I said, it's inaccessible.
Out of table August 2025. Table with 7 rows and 7 columns. Row 1 column 1 suit. Column 2 memo. Column 3 to you. Column 4 week.
Okay, so it's just saying random stuff. I don't even know.
Column 5 th.
I don't know it's not telling me what's selected, what's not selected. It's just hearing letters. So all right, so let's go over to what it actually should look like, because this is just ridiculous.
Motel 6.
Okay,
Find
so
discount
Motel 6.
Clickable update your search button.
Okay.
Labor Day track.
This one's actually very comfortable, and I like this one a lot. So now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to move to tab.
Clickable. Main landmark. Geolocate button. Day 7 nice.
Okay.
Selected date range Saturday, August 23rd to Saturday, August 30th button.
Okay, it's already telling me what dates are selected. Let's
Guests 1 adults. Day 7 night. Calendar date picker.
Calendar
Selected
date
and start date. Saturday, August 23rd, 2025 button.
Okay, so it tells me what button I'm on.
Selected as end date. Choose Friday, August 22nd, 2025 as your check-in date. Selected as start date.
Okay,
Selected.
and I'm just using
Saturday,
arrow keys,
August.
by the way. I'm just using arrow keys to move around this.
Selected as end date. Selected. Selected as end date. Friday, August 29th, 2025.
And now I've selected my dates.
Button date 7 nice. Selected date range Friday, August 22nd to Friday, August 29th. Done. 7 nice. Button.
It tells me it's a button. It tells me what my selected dates are. It tells me everything right there in that button, and I can just click that button and I'm done. This is what it should have looked like before, but obviously it was just giving me a bunch of gobbledygook. So thank you, everyone. I'll hand it back over to Matt, and we'll move back into the presentation.
Yeah, please.
So which one of the screen readers did you use?
Yes, sorry. This is NVDA.
And would
Yeah.
you say one is better than the other?
It depends. It depends on what you're trying to do. A lot of users with vision loss use JAWS now, but it's a paid service, whereas this one is open source. As Matt said, it's free. There are benefits to one over the other, and JAWS tends to do a little bit of guesswork. It tries to do a little bit of heavy lifting because, like you just saw with the previous website, sometimes things are completely inaccessible. So sometimes it does help out with certain things, but NVDA is better for doing. It doesn't do any of that guesswork. It's just going to tell you what's there every time. So it's better for doing like accessibility testing on a website because you know when something's failing.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you see the advent of AI agents and stuff, of this being like a really big use case? People are primarily now using LLMs, voice to text, giving the agent the ability to go make this booking for you based on your spoken criteria.
Yeah, definitely.
In that world.
Yeah.
Repeat the question here.
Yeah, can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
No, can you repeat the question?
Oh, can I repeat the question? Yeah, basically, he's asking if AI, what implications there are for that, and how much that will help in sort of, leveraging that. So my answer to that would be, it already is helping, especially with things like JAWS in their newest versions that implemented AI in a lot of their in a lot of what it does. A lot of the images that are in a website that are not accessible, it will try and like give you its alt text for it, which is very good. And you know, I think the more that AI is used to sort of help with sort of the things that are, you know, leveraging those things that are inaccessible, you know, until we can get to a place where it's, you know, everyone can be accessible. I think that's really good.
Yeah, I think the thing to keep in mind, with AI is, you know, AI is interpreting what somebody else's content is. So in some cases,
Slideshow.
like we
Slide
work,
11.
we work
Demo
with like
03.
a lot of financial institutions, and so you know they're very notorious for using these like very pretty images and then advertising like a bank rate. You know, if you're using an LLM to go through and understand what that alt text is, you know, the alt text might understand. I mean, you know, the LLM might look at it and just interpret the image as like a photo of a happy family, not realizing that it's an advertisement. And it's in those types of moments where, you know, I get nervous because I don't want content owners to feel like, okay, because there's an AI agent, we can be lazy about how we're preparing our content. You know, so I think that's kind of the catch. But, you know, certainly, I mean, for, as Anthony said, plugging the holes, those things are great.
I just want to turn this off really quick.
Yeah, why don't we start in the back?
As an accessible designer, I've always been frustrated with graphing tools because for a sighted person, there is so much in an image when it comes to metrics like that. And when AI came on the scene, I was working in Tableau, and I thought this is really exciting because AI could summarize it for people with impairment.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen that break through on the market.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think you know. I think some of that stuff is slow to mature. We are seeing it in the sense that there are. I mean, we see it in like for people who use Figma. You know, there's a lot of interesting Figma AI integrations that are kind of coming out to help. You know, voice some of those types of things. But it's adoption is slow. I know there were a bunch of other hands. Why don't we just go towards the back or in front? Yes.
If you're using a mobile device, is there a different type of screen reader, and what is that experience like?
Yeah, so on mobile, there's voiceover. There's voiceover on the Apple devices. I know Android has its own as well, and it's sort of like you just swipe to navigate element by element. There's different accessibility features. For someone like me who has some usable vision, I personally on a day-to-day basis don't use a screen reader on my phone. Like I'll just blow up the text, you know, make high contrast modes, have my text bold. Like there's a whole bunch of settings you can play with and sort of get it to work for yourself. But I think from a screen reader perspective, there definitely are screen readers for mobile as well. And people do use them all the time.
Yeah, it's a lot of left, right, and double tap.
Yep.
To navigate element by element. Yeah. You, sir.
For the mobile experience, are you all seeing products in the market that are focused around helping someone who's AI or LLM products that are focused around helping someone who is visually impaired interact with the product? So instead of like scrolling through the site, pressing a button, going to this next page to get the information, submitting information, where it's more of like a voice-based experience specifically designed for people.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we're seeing a lot of, in addition to this, I'm on the board of a nonprofit called In Tandem, which does tandem cycling for people who are visually disabled. And it's interesting because a lot of the folks that ride with us are using like the Meta glasses. The adoption rate for Meta is believe it or not, really, it's caught on hugely in the VI community. We were doing some testing at a museum that we do some work with, and it was amazing how much they're using those meta glasses in terms of like interpreting the world around. It's kind of crazy, but yeah, I definitely see the meta assistance as like growing. Yes.
Do you feel that the AI chatbots that are on the websites are built with accessibility in mind?
Yeah, I think it depends. I think it depends. I mean, what's your take on?
Yeah,
Anthony doesn't really use LLM. I use more than he does.
Yeah, he's probably more familiar with it than I am. But I think like Matt said, I think it depends. Some of them are accessible, some of them are not. But I think Matt, do you want to like just speak?
I just think it's about the implementation, of it. And how well, like we're seeing it, I've seen it a lot in like some travel use cases where you'd like ask the LLM to like, book a whole bunch of elements, and in that case, it's just pulling in content from the web, and if the content on the web is inaccessible, it's just showcasing it, so it's not really doing very much with it afterwards. I think there was one in the back. Yes.
Yeah. Could you explain why, or do you have any knowledge why, like Macintosh tends to have just like a lot of voice text and speech programs just aren't on Macs versus like I know Mac has their own, but like there's literally nothing else. It seems like. Is there any idea? Is it just Mac's voiceover is so good that like why you can compete?
Well, some people are using other, I think obviously Apple's been an early innovator of like assistive technologies, and it's kind of most embedded within its own system. We do see some people using like NVDA on Mac. A lot of times the Apple product is just, so it's so embedded within its own OS that people just use that as the default, which is odd because in Windows Narrator is not used at all. Yeah.
No, I was just wondering because like NV Access, I was on their website and it's like only a download for a .exe, so it's like you would have to lose.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I could look that up though and get some feedback.
Yeah,
yes.
I have a related question.
Yeah.
Is there any way, because as a developer, I've seen different behavior on a website that I'm testing out for the different readers. Is there a way to know, are there statistics out there about like percentage of usage? If I go into analytics, I can see how many people are using like a particular browser. But is there statistics out there about how many users are using NVDA versus JAWS?
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot of, I think there's just a lot of text around like that area. So a lot of folks with disabilities don't necessarily want to be identified through web analytics as being using those types of assistive technologies. The fear has always been, forcing a user into like an accessible experience. If you could kind of browser detect, what if they're coming in. And so I don't know if there's a lot of like generalized statistics around it.
Like survey data.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of screen reader usage, between JAWS and NVDA, it's about, roughly about, if you think of like 8 million people who use screen readers, it's roughly about, almost 40% use JAWS and 40% use NVDA.
Well, then in that case, if it is hard to install NVDA on iOS.
Right.
So is there a lower usage in the visually impaired community for Apple laptops?
Yeah, I don't know that number specifically.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah. Yes?
I have a best practice question for website builders.
Yeah.
With modern websites having potentially multiple logos up at the top, some title text, any or all of those are also a link back to the home page. What is the preference between alt text, title tags, and ARIA labels for any of those different elements?
Yeah. I think it's tough to think about it abstractly. We'd have to kind of look at the page to kind of, see. Obviously, alt text is important for any kind of, image related elements. ARIA, is, I think at the end of it, it's really about how do you kind of use, kind of standard HTML in terms of how you're coding, and then areas that need specific focus that might be kind of complicated. How do you leverage ARIA to kind of express those types of elements? I think the one thing to keep in mind when, especially like the demo that Anthony showed is, perceptually, when a screen reader is going through the website, it's not necessarily that they start at the top and work their way down, right? I think it's important to kind of take away that you're really kind of, I think a lot of people take for granted, just how much, visually you see when you go to a website and how much that kind of interprets your idea of like what's going to go on that page. If I email someone a link and they open it, you know that there's a form or it's an e-com site. For someone who's has a visual impairment, there's a lot of steps that they have to go through to understand those types of areas. And so, breaking down those elements, making sure that they're very descriptive, it really becomes key for increasing usability. Yes?
So on the lines of descriptions, what is the, preferred approach in terms of like user-centric copy for those elements? Like, when I was listening to the screen reader read out a lot of those elements, it was a lot to listen to.
Yeah.
Very quickly, and I feel like I would be very overwhelmed by that amount of information.
Yeah.
Also, if you didn't have that information, would you be really getting what you need from it? So I guess what's the line of like, I want to be really descriptive with this copy, explain everything that is visually on the page, but I don't want to overwhelm the user with the visual information.
Yeah, I think the key there is, and Anthony should really talk. I'll hand it over to him. But a person with a visual impairment, they listen at a much faster, rapid speed than any of us can kind of perceive.
I slowed this down.
Yeah, so I don't know if you want to maybe just give a demo and show kind of what the normal speed is, but it's really kind of fascinating. And
do you want me to do that?
Yeah, please go for it.
Okay.
Would you like them?
Yes.
All right.
Motel 6.
Okay.
Discount code.
Yeah, this is very much slowed down. So normally I'd be at a higher rate here. Bear with me a second. I think it's
Secure desktop.
that's not what I wanted.
Motels. Secure desktop.
Dude.
Motel.
How do I raise the rate on this keyboard? I usually don't use this keyboard, so I don't really know how to do it. There's like a. Hold on.
While he's figuring out, though, but sometimes it's like 200% or 400% at the audio speed. We're working on a project right now where it's a museum kiosk, and again, there's a lot of like information that they want to convey, and so we really made sure that there's like a way to speed up the volume. Not speed up the volume, but speed up the rate of speed. Because to your point, there is a lot of information to convey. I think you don't necessarily realize that most people are not, with a visual impairment, are not listening at this speed. They're listening at like 4 or 5 times this speed. And it almost sounds, like how can anyone understand it? But it really is amazing.
Yes, 1 adults and 0 children. Select the menu button.
Okay, this is still not even fast enough.
Rate 100.
Okay.
Special rate type CD box. Clickable continue button. Clickable call to a link.
And you can get it faster than this, but like generally NVDA is pretty fast, so this is kind of normal. But there are screen readers and screen reader listeners that go faster than this. Typically, this is probably about how fast I would go.
Caps lock on. Clickable continue button. Caps lock on. Special rate type CD box. Start selected menu button.
Yeah.
Left.
So it becomes like people use these for decades, and it becomes second nature. You just increase the speed. You're like, all right, I know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? And it becomes like, people with screen readers can almost do things faster than someone with a mouse because you're like one-hand mouse, one-hand keyboard, moving back and forth, and someone just like.
Especially a lot of times they're on skip links or things like that are like shortcuts. So imagine having to tab through a site, that has no skip link to get to the main content. You're literally, so you have to be very perceptually aware of like what you're hearing to, tab 20 times sometimes to get to the area that you really want to get to.
Right.
I'm curious of a point that you made earlier about like going to a purely accessible version of a site.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little more about that? Because while I was listening to your demo, I would imagine, as someone who doesn't have a visual impairment, that it would be a great experience to have like a clone or a copy of a site that is like very, very accessible. Like maybe removing some of the unnecessary visual elements, but embedding it in the page to where it's more readable.
Yeah, I think the idea of like an accessible version. There's, I think the challenge with it is that. As soon as you start to limit some information from one area to another, I think that's where you start to run into these challenges. I think the real perception, I think the real takeaway is that it's very easy. I think just like the Days In calendar, not the Days In calendar, but the Motel 6 calendar, visually it looked like a great normal calendar that everybody could use. There's a lot of elements that are behind that are also making it accessible. It's a unified experience that works great for everybody, and it just is a calendar. You know what I mean? And so plus, as we all know, it's tough enough for most people to manage one site, let alone two sites. So yes.
That question made me sort of think. A lot of this discourse is really similar to the mobile site stuff. It's like, why don't we just make a separate mobile site? It's like, nobody ever updates that one.
Right.
Right. It's kind of a corollary with keeping some of the stuff that you think the screen reading is visible. Because I read this article, people put ARIA or hidden stuff on links, and then if you're using a voice navigation, it's actually easier if you can give the link text.
Right.
Read more. They can still do it, but it's extra steps. You don't make assumptions about what the users are trying to do, right? Just make sure the stuff's semantic.
That's exactly right. I think that's exactly right. I always am keep it KISS. That's kind of my mantra. And you're right. I'm old enough to remember when we would have M.dot versions of websites. So yeah.
Does no one shop on their phone?
No one will ever or watch video on their phone. Yeah.
Just another quick point to that. I'm not visually impaired. I don't need to hear it read out to me. But sometimes I'm on the couch and I don't have a mouse, and so I want to be able to tab through. And I hate having to hit 20 times, or then if you have drop-down menus, then you do it 20 more times. So I don't think we can just assume that it's positive for people who don't have the accessibility issue and just want to sit on the couch instead of in a computer chair.
You're hired. Yeah. Right.
You can't have.
Oh darn it! No, but yeah, you're making our point. That's exactly right. Yes.
Is site index page or site search, are those usually valuable resources for navigation if you're using a screen reader?
Website searches? Search on a website.
Yeah, sometimes it's I don't want to deal with this mega menu. I don't know whether a site index is actually a good alternative, or a site search is maybe more of a direct way of finding what you're looking for.
Yeah, these are tough questions just because it really just depends on the website. if the search is, inaccessible itself, or it brings me to somewhere that's inaccessible, whereas I could have just found what I'm looking for just by, navigating by headings or tabbing, then the answer is no. But, in other instances, maybe it is more, it's really a case dependent thing, as with a lot of these questions. And that's really because, websites are what you make them, right? So it's really about the website specific, but, generally, I think they're pretty useful, but they definitely, they can have their problems as well, like anything else.
Yes. Yeah.
Try to be quick because I already asked before, but first of all, a quick comment. I think that there's a universal design and some of these principles too, because when I'm on my laptop, I like to tab through pages just because I really hate using a trackpad instead of a mouse. So,
Right.
Question for Mr. Capone. When I've used NVDA just to test sites and I'm not visually impaired, I use like insert down to start from the top, but it looked like from what you were doing that maybe you just will tab around, and maybe I'm kind of like thinking about it from like this top down framework, which Mr. Elefant maybe said is like a different kind of mindset. And then also a second question, this might be a quick one for you, Mr. Elefant. I saw a demo yesterday where someone showed how you could, bulk generate alt text through AI, and I was wondering if there was any best practices or guidance, or if that's kind of verboten or not.
Yeah, to start with mine, basically, so I would normally start at the top, like you said.
Okay.
Navigate either by headings, see where that gets me. Go back to the top, navigate by, just tabbing. Go, try and navigate and just, or intermittently switch between the two. See what that I think that's sort of like just get a feel for the site and what's going on. And if it's a site I'm familiar with, normally I know where I'm going. So I'll just like either go right there, or if there's a skip navigation, that's usually helpful. So you don't have to tab through a million things like Matt was saying earlier. But yeah.
I mean, there was the e-commerce example, and you were tabbing through the menu.
Yeah.
Was that frustrating if there's not a skip to nav?
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I was doing it for the demo because I wanted to just give a sense of like what was in the header there, or the those top elements. But yeah, generally if there was a skip nav there, I would hit that. Yeah.
As far as like AI best practices for generation of content, my team has done a couple different things in this regard. It depends on the content, your volume, and your capacity. So we've imported a bulk content that and put it in a workflow state of like not reviewed, so that a human can come through and review what was created by AI. Other times we'll insert suggestions and like not save the form. So we have like an image field that has no alt text, and then you click a button, and then asynchronously AI will just put in like this is we think what the alt text should be, but it doesn't save the form for you. So then the human who's actually content managing
requires a manual review.
So like there's weird times as like if you have 10,000 pages of legacy content, like you might not have the capacity to review every single one of those, but then your prompt becomes important. You're not just saying, hey AI, type these things. You would say, hey, you're a content editor, these are your options. Which of these options would you choose? So like prompt engineering is what's important in that situation. It's all very relevant.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with all of those statements. I think, look, 98% of the web is inaccessible. I mean, those statistics are really real. So, just to say, it should all be like, it's kind of unrealistic, especially for sites that have lots of content. Those tools definitely work. I agree with this gentleman, like, it should be reviewed. But we've got to, we've all collectively, we've got to close that gap. I mean, it's crazy. I think if you went to a Days Inn and they had like a ramp to their building going to a window, they'd be very embarrassed about the level of accessibility at their hotel, but yet, it's publicly, there, how bad it is to book a room. I know we're kind of getting towards time.
Do you want to turn off the screen?
No, here, we'll just do this.
Powerful.
Um,
Go again. Go again. Start. Accessibility checker. Accessibility. Good to go.
I just want to
Check complete.
leave us on
Slide
this
13,
one point,
status bar.
because I think
Slideshow.
you guys summed it up
Slideshow. Slide 11.
even better for me, which is.
3.
Oop.